We're here with bold predictions with a man, Pete Nova. 10 bold fantasy football predictions for the 2025 NFL season. Off we go, Pete. Hit us hard. We're doing rat-a-tat-tat. This is a rapid-fire show, and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 bold predictions for the player profiler audience.
Yeah, first one is going to be J.J. McCarthy finishes ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is going well within the first 100 picks. McCarthy, right now, he's being drafted as like the QB 19 in many drafts. But when you think about this Vikings offense with Minnesota, with Kevin O'Connell, right, they haven't had it over the last 3 seasons. They haven't had a quarterback finish outside the top 11 in points per game. The starting quarterbacks, they have a great offensive line. They have a top 5 tight end. They have a good wide receiver too in Jordan Addison. We're not even talking about Justin Jefferson. And they also have 2 injury-prone running backs behind him, right, who may get hurt and maybe force him to throw the football a little bit more. Mahomes, I expect the Chiefs. Everyone keeps thinking that this is gonna be the year where these guys air it out more and it's gonna be this high-powered offense. But I think those days are behind us right now, and I think it's going to be this slow slog of an offense. And Patrick Mahomes has scored less than 19 points per game the last 2 out of 3 years. So I'll take J.J. McCarthy over Patrick Mahomes, who's at a much more reasonable cost.
The Chiefs are incentivized to protect Patrick Mahomes, protect him for the playoffs. They know they're a playoff team year in, year out. So what do? They want to run the ball. They want to slow the game down and protect him from their Achilles heel, offensive line. And yes, they're investing in the offensive line. They're drafting talent. Yeah, eventually they will turn it around. But for now, for this moment, yes, Patrick Mahomes has great weapons. But the strategy of the Chiefs is let's grind out these games. Let's win 2017. And that is not the way some other teams are built. So I love that you went with a J.J. McCarthy, a guy that's well outside the top 12. So if you're in a fantasy draft, no one's drafting J.J. McCarthy as their starter, but at Player Profiler on our rankings, check him out. Who's a top 12 quarterback? It's J.J. McCarthy. Why? Because you just look at the numbers. Look at the offensive line. One of the best in the league. They've been investing in the offensive line, but they're building strength on strength as opposed to rebuilding it in Minnesota. The best weapons. Some of the best coaching. All of it. Check, 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 check. And J.J. McCarthy was an elite college prospect. He was a young champion at the highest level of college football. He has size, athleticism, arm strength. He's the total package. They told Sam Darnold bye-bye, didn't even negotiate, just said, we got our guy, good luck. And now it's time. It's so perfect because he would have been the number 1 pick in the draft had he come out this year. He had the injury wipe out his 2024 season. The meniscus, he probably could have came back from it. They said, hey, listen, we're investing in you for the long run. Take the full season off. He comes back. No one knows what he's going to look like as a pro. But Minnesota saw enough of J.J. McCarthy. And no one should be surprised when he outscores Patrick Mahomes. That's wow. You really kicked us off well.
I'm learning from the best. That's all. If I didn't really believe it, I wouldn't have said it. I really do think it's a very strong possibility. I'm staying away from Patrick Mahomes this year.
I do like Rashee Rice. I like Rashee Rice this year. I think his number 1 option, even in a lower volume offense, the number 1 option is going to get there. But guys like Xavier Worthy, they're also stayaways. And we're not going to agree on all of these. There's going to be some debate. Okay. I have, as a bold prediction, Kenneth Walker, top 5 running back. And why? The philosophy of the Seattle Seahawks. They brought in Darnold, right? Minnesota said bye-bye. Seattle said hello. And they're not going to try to push the ball downfield and ask Darnold to win games. No, they're going to try to win this similar to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's going to be the Kenneth Walker show. This coaching staff is fully committed to Kenneth Walker. You look at the advanced metrics on Player Profiler. He was top 5 in juke rate, evaded tackles per touch. This guy specializes in long runs, making people miss. Now they're going to get an extra H-back, fullback, tight end on the field, make it even easier for Kenneth Walker to find running lanes. and he emerged as one of the better receivers in the league. It was the surprise stat of 2024 that Kenneth Walker would go out and put up a target share, right? Target share of 13.8, number 4 among qualified running backs. That was mind-blowing. He has become a full-blown, all-purpose weapon on a team that is going to be focused on running the ball. He is just a superior talent to Zach Charbonnet and now Damian Martinez. I'm all in on Kenneth Walker at his ADP, 4th round, 5th round. Oh, man, smash.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I like Kenneth Walker, the player, but are we going to get Kenneth Walker to be healthy again? I mean, talking about a guy who missed the most games of his career last year. He only played 11. The year before that, he played just 15. And the year before that, in his rookie season, he played 15. We know when Kenneth Walker is on the field, he is a very special, talented player. I don't doubt that if he is on the field, he is going to be extremely productive and can definitely and will most likely beat out his ADP, which is somewhere around like the running back 16, 17 range. But I think Zach Charbonnet could give you a little bit more of a run for your money. I don't think he's the most talented player, but when you look at Zach Charbonnet, I mean, he ran the 2nd most routes in the NFL at the running back position. Now, Kenneth Walker, when he was on the field, he had a number 4 in target share, which is very, very high. He ran 11th most routes in the NFL. But I just think Charbonnet is one of those guys where if Kenneth Walker gets hurt again, which we've already seen, he's already dinged up a little bit. Can Zach Charbonnet, do you see a world where maybe he takes that from Kenneth Walker? I see it as a possibility, but to your point, if Kenneth Walker is healthy, he is the better back in this backfield, and he's a very talented player, but it's all about him being on the field.
I think the Damian Martinez pick was a shot across the bow at Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet is a cardboard cutout, good at everything, great at nothing. And that's not the guy that I'm betting on. He's always been overrated as a handcuff. You get a couple weeks here and there. Now the problem is he's on my do not draft list among handcuff backs. There's so many other handcuff backs I'd rather have that are available many rounds later, like a Roshan Johnson, like a Taj Brooks. And let's say Kenneth Walker does get hurt. Damian Martinez is going to rotate in. And those days of Zach Charbonnet getting these free square Sundays are over, and it's going to be the Kenneth Walker show. It was a strained oblique that cost him games 2 years in a row. Upper body injuries are less likely to recur than lower body injuries, and so for that reason, I think that the injury-prone tag for Kenneth Walker is a bit of a narrative, and I'm all in. Who do you got? What's your next bold prediction?
Yeah, my next bold prediction is that Cedric Tillman, wide receiver for the Browns, is going to finish ahead of Jerry Jeudy, his running mate, in total fantasy points on the season. I am a huge Cedric Tillman fan. If you are drafting with Fast Draft, he's a guy that right now in the Rabbit practically goes almost undrafted just 33% of the time. And when you look at Cedric Tillman last year, when he was on the field, right, and he ran 45 routes from week 7 to 11, he averaged 10 targets, 6 catches, and 75.5 yards per game, 18.6 points per game during that span. And I think we saw Cedric Tillman and what he can be. I think Kevin Stefanski unlocked him in this offense. And with Jerry Jeudy, I think some of his stats are inflated. He had that huge game against Denver that inflated some of his stats, but he had just 5 games over 15 fantasy points when Tillman over that stretch from week 7 to week 11 was the better wide receiver. I think Jeudy got lucky that Tillman got knocked out in week 12 against Pittsburgh, and we didn't see him for the rest of the season because this is a guy that was drafted round 3. He was talented. So I think Cedric Tillman finishes ahead of Jerry Jeudy. I love him at his cost, and I'm really in on Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman took over for Jauan Jennings in Tennessee and played a similar role. We'll talk about Jauan Jennings a little bit later. But Cedric Tillman is a proper outside alpha. These guys are more rare in the NFL. When they come along, you need to take advantage. His best comparable on Player Profiler, Nico Collins. And when you watch him play, you're like, hey, this guy looks a little bit like Nico Collins. In best ball games, we talked about Fast Draft has the Rabbit, the brand new full best ball contest on Fast Draft, the Rabbit. Use code FAST, or code NOVA. You have a code NOVA, $50 deposit match when you sign up on Fast Draft. Jerry Jeudy doesn't have a stack companion. So the incentive to draft a Jerry Jeudy at his ADP is not great because you want to be able to have the option of drafting the quarterback to stack with that wide receiver a few rounds later. You don't have that option with Jerry Jeudy. You don't have that option really with a DK Metcalf. You're not trying to draft Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Aaron Rodgers. No. But at the end of a draft, that's when you want to take shots on players on some of the bad offenses, guys that have the requisite size, athleticism, upside, things break their way. They could lead you to the big money, $10,000 to first in the Rabbit. So I absolutely love that pick. So we're back to agreeing. We went from agree to disagree to agree. And I talked about quarterback play. I think Kirk Cousins is going to outscore Aaron Rodgers this year. Aaron Rodgers plays slow, and there is a very good chance that a team that is projected to be in contention has something happen to their quarterback in preseason or early in the season, and Kirk Cousins is waiting by the phone. He every day. If we were to just peek in, what's Kirk Cousins up to right now? He's sitting in a chair next to a phone. He is ready to go. He disappointed last year, but he's not that old. He's still just in his 30s. He has years left to go in the NFL. He's years younger than Aaron Rodgers. And he plays faster with a similar arm talent. And he just was, unfortunately, a warrior last year, playing through injury. Everyone knows he was playing hurt. There were tens of stories, hundreds even. I don't know hundreds, but there were a lot of stories about how he was not 100%. And he actually did himself a disservice in free agency. A guy that was such a master of free agency for so many years was actually negatively impacted by the fact that he decided to play at less than 100%. Now he is 100%, more than a year removed from this Achilles rupture, and he is ready to go, and someone's going to call him, and he's going to come in, and he's going to outscore Russell Wilson. He's going to outscore Aaron Rodgers, and he's a guy that in 2QB and Superflex leagues, he needs to be stashed now.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Kirk Cousins last year, from weeks 4 to 8, he had 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And you mentioned it, the Achilles injury, right? It takes some time to bounce back from an injury like that. I mean, he could really not throw off his back foot, so he wasn't really generating a ton of power and strength in those throws. And he just never really seemed comfortable in the first few weeks of the year. But then he went on that stretch from weeks 4 to 9, Cousins, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. A QBR of 68, and 292 yards per game. Then weeks 10 to 14, which, as you mentioned, we all knew he was hurt. Just 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions, a QBR of 34. I mean, it was clearly not the same guy. And I think the Falcons took Penix, and it was a good opportunity to give him a chance. And they said, you know what, let's just roll with it at this point. But to your point, Matt, I mean, Cousins could find himself in Miami, right? Like, I see a world where a quarterback goes down like a Tua who hasn't been healthy, and I trust his arm and his ability at this point in his career more than Rodgers. It's not a slight on Rodgers as much as it is. I don't trust that offense as much, right? With the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that passing offensive line, that offensive line is not going to be great. And I don't love the situation there and the weapons. Whereas Cousins, if he landed in a place like Miami with those weapons, like, I think he could make hay and be a very, very good quarterback for fantasy. So I don't think it's out of the question at all. And of course, we're assuming, he gets moved. Obviously, if he's on the bench, he's not going to be better than Rodgers. But if he does get moved, I think there is a world. I mean, it's not like this guy didn't just come off of a season where he threw 25 touchdowns, right, in 8 games in 2023. I mean, he's talented. So we'll see. But I don't think it's that crazy of a take at all.
No, crazier take would be Zach Wilson starts more games than Tua, but that's also in the range of possibilities for the season. I mean, it's not just an injury. Tua lacks pocket awareness, and when you have divested in your offensive line and your quarterback lacks pocket awareness and he's trying to wait for receivers to get open downfield, that is a recipe for disaster in Miami. And just look at the yards per attempt. Just a simple metric, right? 8.9 when Tyreek Hill arrives that first season. One of the best yards per attempts in the league. Drops to 8.3, drops to 7.2. In his first year without Tyreek Hill, Tua's yards per attempt was just 6.3. So I think we're headed back to his yards per attempt early in his career, which was one of the worst. I mean, he is not able to push the ball downfield for a variety of reasons: pass protection, pocket awareness, and the aging of Tyreek Hill. So warm up Zach Wilson, but hope that it's Kirk Cousins.
I agree. Yeah.
What do you got?
I mean, I think I truly think Davante Adams, we talked about him a lot, Matt, but Davante Adams finishing ahead of Puka Nacua is a hot take and one that I'm here for. I think at this point in Davante Adams' career, and this is not shade on Puka Nacua, who I think is a good receiver, I think Davante Adams is a better receiver than Puka Nacua. And when you think of Puka, who has had trouble staying on the field, staying healthy, if he goes down, Davante, which we know there's a good chance we can expect Puka to miss a few games here and there or play injured, Davante Adams doesn't miss football games, right? I mean, he just doesn't. And last year he missed a couple, but it was that phantom hamstring injury. But we saw what Davante Adams did. I mean, 141 targets last year in just 14 games, Jesus. Right? He was wide receiver 11, missing 3 games last year, wide receiver 9 in points per game. I think Matthew Stafford's going to love him. And I think Puka, his cost right now is a little expensive. We talked about it, but I would probably prefer like Nico Collins or BTJ over Puka in drafts. And Davante Adams' cost, for some reason, he's less expensive this year on a better offense with a better quarterback indoors than he was last year, where, yeah, he was indoors with the Raiders and then obviously he went to the Jets, but it was a much worse situation. I guess people are banking on the fact that there was less target competition there, but Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both had 100-plus targets last year while missing 12 and 11 games. So Davante Adams is a better wide receiver. I could see it happening, and I love him at his cost right now. So I'm taking Adams over Puka.
Now, Puka did have the highest target rate, targets per route run, most yards per route run last year. So in many ways, he was the most efficient wide receiver in football. The problem is Davante Adams has been the best wide receiver the last 10 years. So it's like one guy has 1 season, one guy has 10 seasons, and he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. So for that reason, I love that take. Anytime that you can, when you look at a situation like you have with the Rams, where you have 2 pretty equivalent talents at wide receiver, one's a first-round pick, one's a 3rd or 4th round pick, makes no sense. Just pound Davante Adams on Fast Draft in the Flex 4 game. He's a guy you should be drafting. In the Rabbit, he's a guy that you can stack with Matthew Stafford. I love that Adams Stafford stack, but the Puka Stafford stack a little bit rich for me. So here's mine. Here's my bold prediction. Talking about cliff years for wide receivers, right? Not Davante Adams. No cliff year coming. No signs of that. There are signs of it for Mike Evans. So I predict that Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, they will outscore Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in fantasy football this year. I think the 49ers offense is going to be better. I think they're going to be in more shootouts. They're going to have to throw to be competitive more often than the Buccaneers, who are going to face the Panthers and the Saints. And it's like, oh, look at this soft schedule to end the year. Yeah, I see a lot of Bucky Irving to end the year. I don't see a lot of Baker Mayfield to end the year. Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall are going to be the starters, at least in the first half. Brandon Ayuk's not going to be 100% until very late in the season, if at all. Pearsall, an athletic monster, came on, had a couple super encouraging games. Once he got healthy, once he got acclimated, he looked the part of a starting and efficient NFL wide receiver, and Jauan Jennings was simply their go-to receiver last year. With a pocket passer, back there, not running, only throwing, right? All those dropbacks get turned into throws, get turned into targets, as opposed to a guy like Baker Mayfield likes to scramble around a little bit, guy like Kyler Murray. Pass attempts get siphoned out of those offenses when the quarterbacks run. You don't have that problem with the 49ers, and that's why it's a math equation. When you actually look at how many yards, how many touchdowns are going to be scored, how many total targets are available, and who's going to absorb those targets, Jauan, Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall are incredible values in fantasy football. And Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, now with the addition of Emeka Egbuka, the target math just doesn't add up. They're overvalued in fantasy.
Yeah, the only pushback I would have is really on Evans. I would prefer Evans over both of them, only solely on the fact that I think Godwin, I think the consolidation, it's a lot of this is going to go to Evans. And I know we're banking on, is the fall off coming, right? I mean, we're banking on Davante Adams, right? Like, how many of these older veteran wide receivers can we bank on before we get burned? And history tells us that there is going to be a fall off. I would say Baker did average 33 pass attempts per game last year. Tampa Bay's defense did not get much better. They play in a division with Carolina Panthers, who have a bottom 5 defense, the Saints, who play indoors, who have a bad defense as well, and then you have the Falcons, who are one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year as well, who also play in a dome. I think that should lead to points. I think Godwin's in trouble here. I think you're mentioning Egbuka, and I think Egbuka, I think it's going to be spread around between a lot of the other players on this team, which I worry a lot about Godwin, right? Is he going to start the season on the pup? Is he going to be healthy? The fact that this team is non-committal at the moment, and they're trying to be encouraging, but they're not giving us a commitment on Chris Godwin, concerns me. And at his cost, you have guys like Ricky Pearsall. I'm more on Pearsall than you are. You seem to prefer Jennings, but you like both.
I like them both.
I think Pearsall, yeah, I think both of them should and will, especially if Ayuk doesn't come back and he starts on the pup, which is very similar to this Godwin stuff. I think both of those guys should outscore Godwin. I'm banking on Egbuka having more targets, very possibly over Chris Godwin this year. But I like Mike Evans. I think they're going to consolidate targets to him at least. And then it's just going to get spread around to the running backs and, the other ancillary pieces on that offense.
Let us know in the comments. What is your bold prediction? Do you agree, by the way? Do you agree that it's possible that Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall actually outscore Mike Evans and Chris Godwin? Because that would be a pretty shocking event for a lot of people based just on the ADPs in these early fantasy drafts. So let us know in the comments. Like the video. If you like what we're doing and we want more bold predictions, just go ahead and like it. But I want to hear from you. I want to hear your bold predictions, and if you strongly object to what we're saying here. Now, the one thing I'll say about Mike Evans, just to support my claim, look at the average target depth. It has been in free fall with his air yards in recent years, down to 11.6. The ADOT average target distance, 11.6, ranked number 39 among qualified wide receivers. This is Mike Evans. He has been an air yard superstar. And once you see the target depth that these wide receivers are commanding, once you see that start to decline, then the other routes that they're running, the comebacks, the quick outs, the button hooks, those have less credibility to opposing corners, and that's when those windows shrink, the throw windows shrink, and the targets decline. The ability to connect, it's much harder for Mayfield and Evans to connect. And that is how, in practice, a cliff year manifests in the NFL. So who you got, what you got for us in terms of your next bold prediction?
Yeah, next prediction is going to be the combination of Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton will outscore the combination of Justin Herbert and Lad McConkey. I know it sounds crazy. Bo Nix, rookie last year, going into year 2, is it a fluke, right? But we've seen Justin Herbert, right? Bo Nix last year, 19.4 fantasy points per game was good enough for 8th in the NFL. You look at Justin Herbert in the last 3 seasons, he hasn't touched that number on a fantasy points per game basis a single time. This is a different offense too. Justin Herbert threw the ball 504 times in 17 games last year. In 2023, 13 games, he threw the ball 456 times, right? I mean, the numbers are going down and down. When he did have those years in 2021 where he had 23.3 fantasy points per game, the defense was much worse. He threw the ball 672 times, right? I don't expect him to hit that number. They invested in this offense with the rushing game. Najee Harris, they're bringing Omarion Hampton. I think it's pretty clear to me that Bo Nix is going to have a better season than Herbert, and I think it's going to be a much better season. If you think about averaging 2 more points per game over a 17-game season, you're looking at close to 40 fantasy points in total. And then you look at the 2 wide receivers, right? You look at Courtland Sutton, who last year, he has 8 touchdowns. He actually regressed in touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns the year before, right? He had 135 targets. I love Lad McConkey. It's not necessarily a slight on Lad, but they bring in Trey Harris. They bring in 2 big-time running backs in Najee and Omarion Hampton, and they've pretty much signaled to us that they are going to run the football a ton. I like Lad McConkey. I'm not going to say I'm not drafting him, but I think it's more of a slight as I think Courtland Sutton's a little underdrafted, and I think Justin Herbert's a little overdrafted. What about you?
Well, you said the wrongest thing so far. You called Najee Harris a big-time running back, so shame on you for that.
I knew you were going to kill me for that.
No, you can't say that.
It just kind of rolled off the tongue.
It felt good. No, I get it. It felt good. And so you have the benefit of the things that matter for fantasy football, where Bo Nix is going to outrush Justin Herbert, and that's where a lot of quarterback fantasy points and difference-making points come from in the running game. And what matters for wide receivers more than air yards when you're trying to predict, yards and touchdowns from one season to the next. Not very many metrics are better than that. So if you like Mike Evans or you are fading Mike Evans, one of the things you would look at is the air yards. We talked about it. And one of the reasons why I have circled it as a cliff year for Mike Evans is the decline in air yards. Meanwhile, what's Courtland Sutton doing? Finishing number 2 in the NFL in air yards. So some of these metrics that matter look very good for the Broncos and the Broncos passing game. So that's one of those that seems hot on the surface, but it's really not. It's really not. And I'll build on that with Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton is a superstar, and Najee Harris is very dusty. He is a veteran, though. He will get the veteran deference. He will be the starter in week 1. And then from what they saw in preseason and training camp before that, the Chargers know that they have a star in Omarion Hampton, and because he was a first-round pick, that helps. That helps. The front office putting that pressure on, hey, we got to get this guy out there. We're going to feature him. We took him with early capital. And so when the play on the field matches the capital you've invested, that's a recipe for becoming the primary option as quick as possible. So I think that Omarion Hampton's going to surprise a lot of people, become the featured all-purpose back in a run-first offense, one of the best offensive lines early in the year. And for that reason, Omarion Hampton's going to outscore Kyren Williams. He's going to outscore James Cook. I even think he's going to outscore DeVon Achane. I'm all in on Omarion Hampton and the upside of his all-purpose talent combined with the situation, the best possible situation that he's found himself in on a team with the right philosophy and the right supporting cast to put him in position to score a lot of fantasy points. We're talking about top 10 upside for Omarion Hampton. He's going to outscore a bunch of these other guys that are going rounds ahead of him.
Well, you might as well just did a hot take of Omarion Hampton over DeVon Achane at that point, which, it was kind of like an additional bonus hot take there. Not meant for the segment, but you kind of threw that in there. So are you standing on that business? Is that what you're feeling?
Well, I want people to feel something. Right? Yeah. And maybe you didn't feel it when I said he'll outscore Kyren. Maybe you didn't feel it when I said he'd outscore James Cook. But with one of these guys, you're going to feel it. Maybe it took DeVon Achane for people to feel something. But now I pretty much guarantee people are going to feel something. Make them feel something with your next bold prediction, Pete.
Yeah, my next bold prediction is TreVeyon Henderson finishes as a top 10 running back in PPR. I look, I get it. The Patriots, they added to this defense. People expect it to be better. I think they'll be better, but I don't think they're going to be much better. TreVeyon Henderson, when you look at him and first of all, number one, he steps into this room as the best pass blocker on the team by far. So the third down work, I did not expect Ramondre Stevenson to really sniff a ton of that receiving work where he got 41 targets last year. Antonio Gibson had 29 targets last year. I think TreVeyon Henderson is going to finish with at least 60 targets this season. And he's the most talented back by far in this room. And
He's the
when we
best
think about
receiver on the team.
arguably the best receiver on the team, he doesn't even need to be deployed in the backfield. He could be deployed in the slot. I mean, he is very talented. When you think about Josh McDaniels, he's very creative. He's a creative play caller, right? They're going to try to find ways to get him the football, and he plays on a team that's going to have a bad defense. They're going to be playing in a division where, the Dolphins, if Tua is healthy, they should put up points. The Bills should put up points. The Jets could even put up points. You like Justin Fields in that Garrett Wilson stack. Like, they could put up points too. They're going to be playing from behind a ton, in my opinion. I think Drake May's going to love having a satellite back like Henderson out of the backfield. And guys like Chase Brown, like the reason Chase Brown is so attractive for people is because he plays on a team with a very bad defense and a quarterback that likes to throw him the football. I think we're going to see something a little bit similar here where you're going to see TreVeyon Henderson deployed out of the backfield a ton, and 60 targets at minimum is what I'm expecting for Henderson. He might catch 60 passes this year.
Oh, yeah. He is my favorite pick. In the Flex 4 game, you just pick any 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends on Fast Draft, and the top 4 into your lineup every week, best ball style. You can get TreVeyon Henderson in the 5th and 6th round routinely. Love the upside there. Final bold prediction. I'll take us out. I believe that this small quarterback and his top 10 draft pick wide receiver, young top 10 draft pick wide receiver, will outscore another diminutive quarterback with a top 10 wide receiver. Bryce Young and Tet McMillian, that stack, will outscore the Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison stack. And there's a lot of parallels here. These are both big-bodied wide receivers drafted in the top 10. Kyler's actually more mobile than Bryce Young, but Bryce Young, I believe, is a better passer, and the situation that is being set up in Carolina, where they're going to have to throw in comeback mode, game in, game out, week in, week out, Bryce Young, Tet McMillian stacks in this rabbit game on Fast Draft and across best ball. I think that is going to be one of the league-winning stacks. And Kyler and Marvin Harrison, we saw what they can do last year. Nothing's changed. And that's not a stack I'm excited about. What do you think?
Are you telling me that Kyler Murray and the Cardinals offense don't get better after all the improvements that they made this offseason?
No. From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.